friend
Sybil
named
Ants.
she named her child Elizabeth, and she genuinely believes that people will always call her child Elizabeth. And I'm like, because I was already like being like, well, Liz is going to do this and this and this, and she's like, no, it's Elizabeth, and I'm like, you're hilarious. Like, you clearly have not been around children. Like, no.
Oh, guys, we're live.
Oh, hello.
Wow.
Oh dear.
Okay. All right. This is what we talk
For how
about.
long?
Only a few seconds.
Did you catch when I was changing my shirt?
No, I did not.
Can I do it again?
No. We didn't see that crotch shot either, so thank goodness, people. So this is what we do before the show. We chit-chat, and I was messing around with... Well, I was trying to, like, create a preview file on Facebook so I could link that to, like, other things.
Oh, dear.
And I didn't realize it would just go live as soon as the countdown ended. I thought it would give me a little bit of warning, but no, we're live. All right, great.
Yep.
Well, welcome to Around the Lens, episode 138. I'm your host, David J. Murphy. Around the Lens is a live weekly visual journalism roundtable show coming at you every Monday night at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. Eastern. I gotta get that right now. Anyways, I'm here with my co-hosts Ron and Zach tonight. We have no. And that's Ron's trademark police sirens in the background.
Ron's siren call.
Indeed. So no guest on tonight, but glad to have the boys on for a little bit of good photo ribbing, visual journalism ribbing. Before we go into the show, Zach, do you have anything happening in your life? Anything in the last week you want to chit chat about?
I feel like that now that you bring it up, there's something, and I that we might have talked about before the show, and now I can't remember anything.
All right, great. Moving on.
Not really. No, I don't.
Ron, anything happened to you in the last week you want to share with our audience besides getting the Arsenal? And you're muted still.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, Arsenal. We're going to talk about this on the show. I'm going to send it to these other two guys, and we're all going to play with it and see if it's worth the hype.
Yeah, that's right.
Currently, Arsenal cost me $150.
Yikes.
The current price is $175. Only for the next month, because after that it goes to the regular price of $250.
Act now while
so
supplies last.
So if you think this is worth it, what's that?
Act now while supplies last.
Act now. This is your chance.
Yeah.
This is a magic device, or is it? Stand by for the Around the Lens coverage.
I don't know. We'll find out. All right. Well, we got a great show for you tonight. A lot of topics to talk about. So let's just get right into it. What's the first topic up for bid? So this is a topic that you brought up, Zach. You shared this link, I believe, on our Facebook page as well. And it's all about especially government-sponsored journalism in the sense that, you know, during the communist era in Afghanistan, during the time when, you know, the Russia was fighting the Afghans, you know, as famously portrayed in Rambo, the government, U.S. government, was actually backing the jihadists, or the Afghans. They were backing the Afghans rebels against the Russians, and they were actually paying like $500,000 to, apparently in this one story, to create essentially journalists, you know, to report on what's going on. So, Zach, you can do a much better job explaining the story than I can, and talk to us about it and why you decided to bring it up tonight.
I mean, the main thing is just as we kind of talk about, you know, the problem of fake news and the problem, and as the country kind of has this discussion about, you know, what is news and as what was it Rudy Giuliani just said, is truth isn't truth. It is interesting that, you know, the United States government has kind of a long history of creating journalism where it didn't exist before. I mean, we have the oh my God, I'm blanking on the name of the news organization. The
CNN?
No. No, the America. We have a VOA, Voice of America.
Voice of America. There you go.
Yeah. So I mean, like we have that you know goes around the country. It goes as you know they have news outlets around the world that cover international news and trying to do it in usually it should be done, at least according to what it's supposed to do, is in a relatively like AP style. This is a thing that happened. We don't have a lot of commentary attached to it. Even though interesting now, I think it's Greta Van Susteren is now a editor or a reporter there at Voice of America News. Weird. But this goes back to a story that back in the 80s during the Reagan administration, we helped kind of try to build the idea, I guess, would be that we tried to build a kind of a base of journalism within the country. My bet is that it mainly was just to be able to get video and information from what was going on in Afghanistan back then when the Russians were fighting the Afghanistanis, and we were all at the same time also supporting the Mujahideen and creating certain people who will not be named later on. But it's just I just thought it was a very interesting story. It's in Columbia Journalism Review, that's not too much in depth. I just think it's one of those interesting historical stories. And obviously it was a failed experiment. Years later, the Taliban took over, and they were not friendly to media. They make the Antifa look like
a profile.
I don't know what the comparison is to they look like make the Antifa look like Rachel Maddow's fan base or something. I don't know. But that's
yeah, I thought this was an interesting story. Obviously, I think if you know anything about history, if you've looked at sort of the history of the Afghan era and the people, because obviously a lot of people's understanding of Afghanistan stems primarily from their knowledge of the recent Iraq-Afghanistan wars, where we came in post 9/11. But obviously this story spreads back so far, and was really grown out of our own essentially failed attempts at trying to prevent the spread of communism into Afghanistan. And probably if we'd left well enough alone, maybe we wouldn't have to deal with the problems we deal with today, but who knows? That's neither here nor there. But I did think that was an interesting story. And, one thing I can tell you from what the military does is actually in Afghanistan right now, they have a program called AFPAC All Hands, which is actually a program where they send public affairs folks overseas to help essentially train Afghan soldiers in Afghanistan on how to do public affairs. So we give them the same type of training that they get here and essentially promote them telling their own story. Because again, it's all part of the overall training of the military in Afghanistan to get them to be able to, again, defend themselves, care for themselves, and take care for their own country. So it's interesting. I see some parallels here, but obviously this was more, hey, here's some camera equipment, some money, go document stuff. And now it's more of like a program where we're helping them, hand in hand, trying to get essentially establish their sort of freedom of press, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's one line which I kind of forgot because it's interesting because it's the Smith-Mundt Act, which I never knew the name of the act, but I knew that like government funded kind of propaganda can't be aired legally within the United States, but due to just the way that media and video works, is that one of the clips from that was funded. One of the projects or videotapes or whatever it is, news programs that they did in Afghanistan ended up airing on CBS anyway, just due to the fact that they probably found the video and just aired it. But it is interesting because it's like that act still exists, but it doesn't. Like I think we find that it doesn't actually end up working so often.
Yeah.
So
well, the idea behind the repeal was revisement. Was that, look, it's internet, everything's global. You can't really control stuff. So, hey, you can't stop us from propaganding the American people. They're going to see it one way or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So any other thoughts on this before we move on?
Other than I did not know that, as I said off air, I did not know that Reuters was formerly called Visu.news.
That's right.
VIS News.
That's why you named
which is awkward considering I just named the news site that I'm building Visu.news.
That's right.
So I just wanted on record here that I had no idea.
Your Honor, I'd like to bring up Exhibit A. Zach was unaware.
Buddy.
And the fact that my name is Zachary Donald Reuter Roberts has nothing to do with either. And if Reuters wants to sue, I will countersue for stealing my name. No, I'm kidding.
I find it interesting here that they stopped funding it in 1992, and then in 1999 the agency actually dissolved. So this was a very long-lasting
the VOA?
program.
No.
Oh, Viz. News. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm talking about the story.
No,
so.
AMRC, I guess, is what they ended up calling it.
Yeah, but they were pretty productive. 3,000 hours of video, 100,000 negatives and slides, and 500 hours of audio recording. So pretty much what I do in a general year or less, they were doing from 1987 to 2012. So it's pretty neat. They kept it up. A friend of mine actually is trying to, or perhaps did establish a public affairs element or public relations, public journalism, a news, capability in Africa. He was actually a friend of mine from high school. He graduated the same year as I did. He moved to Africa. I can't remember the village or whatever, but he moved out there. He lived with them. He married a resident there. They have kids, and he set up basically a news agency in that country. I should have him on the air at some point and talk about his experience.
That'd be an idea.
Yeah. One of these days. Sometime in the next, 3 years, perhaps.
It's definitely worth, because I was wondering whether, once you said it was, hundreds of thousands or 100,000 negatives, it looks like somebody is actually archiving a lot of this and putting it on archive.org. There's a link in the article, and it's just really fascinating. I mean, it looks like mostly, wow, there's a ton of photos too. Looks like 98,000 documents have been scanned or uploaded in general. So
I remember reading about the Vietnam War that the Viet Cong were given a roll of film per month, something like that, and so they're like one shot a day, was what they, and it's really, really awesome stuff though. Really beautiful photography.
They might have actually been the origin of the picture a day
there
thing
you go.
that we do.
Photo a day.
It has a
Ho Chi Minh's photo a day. Sign up here. Yeah.
They were
great idea. They were ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
I just found it out. A friend of mine, he created a company called Nuba Reports, and it's out of the Nuba Mountains in Sudan. So essentially, a war broke out in June of 2011. And nobody was covering it, right? So he was like, okay, this is an issue because nobody's covering this war. No mainstream media, no nobody. So he created the news agency, and his work has been featured on New York Times, Fox News, Huffington Post, Al Jazeera, MSNBC, BBC, and local Arabic media. So there you go,
guys.
That
movie about the kid that went to Sudan or to no, not Sudan, to the pirates, Somalia. The kid went to Somalia he wanted to be a reporter, so he went to Somalia.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What was that movie?
I don't know. I remember seeing the trailer, and it looked really terrible. Like in the portrayal of basically the country, not necessarily. And also, anytime I see a story about an idiot kid that goes off and uninformed and doesn't know that, I mean, like it starts to sound like the Into the Wild story, but for journalists. Yeah. And I always am like, I don't even want to talk about those type of films because I'm always paranoid of being that person.
Here it is here. The Pirates of Somalia, 2017. Right. Yeah, I liked it.
All right, guys, let's move on to our next topic.
Sorry.
No worries. But yeah, I'm going to get in touch with my friend and try and have him on the show in the future and talk about his setting up a news agency because that's pretty neat. He should have called it Visu.news.
Should make a movie about his life.
Or Reuters. Maybe you'll do that with your new Arsenal. Does the Arsenal do video, by the way, or is it just stills?
It does something video. I haven't played with it yet, but yeah, there's a video setting. I don't know what it does.
Sweet.
Haven't tried it yet.
All right, so I know we've talked about this in the past, but at the time when I was putting these stories together, I was like, oh man, what is to talk about? What can we talk about? And we won't spend a lot of time on this because, again, we've talked about this type of thing in the past. But again, it's not a bad thing to bring up every so often, and it's brought up here by Petapixel. So they're talking about the case against watermarks. I'm of the belief that I don't think watermarks are really that necessary. People just get annoyed by them if you put your stuff out there and you don't want people to really copy it. Just kind of keep it low res and keep it small. That's kind of my type of thing. Nobody, unless you're I don't even know, even if you're super big, I mean, people are going to get your images and nowadays watermarks are pretty much, meaningless because they have computer software that can just get around them. But what do you guys think of watermarks? Are you pro or against them and why or why not? So you, Ron, go for it.
I don't use watermarks.
Why not?
Extra work for no benefit. There's software that can get around it.
True.
It annoys people. Everything you just said, I don't use.
You know what watermark does work? And I saw this when I was doing marathons because, of course, they want you to buy your photographs. And what's neat is they have these GIF or GIF previews. So it's like the logo is like constantly moving on the. So you're not downloading a JPEG. You're downloading. If you download it, you're downloading the GIF.
Yeah.
I gotta make sure I say it right, otherwise I'm gonna.
Well, the guy who created the file format says GIF.
Yeah, well,
he's wrong.
Not every creator is endowed with their creation's best
So
interest.
Reuters calls themselves Reuters. My last name is Reuters, so
Wow.
I don't know what to tell you. But
Zach, I know you probably expressed it, but your take on the watermark as an issue?
I'm quite adamant about it, because especially when you're covering a scene. First off, there's about a million different reasons, but I mean, like, just a couple is if you're covering a scene with multiple people, and there's multiple photographers around, it's one of the best ways that if your photo's taken or stolen or used somewhere, you can know that it's your photo. I find that most of the time people are just lazy as hell. If they're stealing work to begin with, they're going to be lazy.
Yeah.
And they usually don't crop it. And so it's the best way that I find whether or not it's definitely my work. I don't, and also, for smaller, like I work for a small nonprofit site, and I think I'm one of the only continual photographers for them. There's a handful of other people that do occasional assignments, but they spend for what their budget is. They spend a lot of money to physically send me places, and they don't have the ability to go after people the way that like AP or Reuters or whatever, whoever else will. And so one of the good ways, again, of knowing at least at minimum when they steal my work from their website or from my Twitter feed or their Twitter feed or whatever, is that they'll at least get the credit that it's their work, and that they'll possibly, people will at least know that, it's branding. I mean, you don't go out. Most people don't wear, generic shoes that don't have any logos on them, or, T-shirts and things. I mean, like, it's just something I think that in general, I mean, Nike has kind of, if you wear Nike, Reebok, Adidas, and a couple other shoes, I mean, Michael Jordan has his own logo. I mean, most people have their own logo, the celebrities have their own logo, but I think in general, like, I think it's a good idea to attach it. I think it, at least at some level, attaches some importance to your work, that it's not just floating around on the internet to be used, kind of by anyone for any purposes or whatever. But also in general, I mean, like, it does, I think, it doesn't prevent people from stealing it, but I think at least it gives people pause, or at least gives people a way to contact you if they find the photo and they want to use it. They can contact you through that watermark, or at least Google, through there. People have done that. They find my, photo randomly. The people have, stolen or reposted, whatever. And that watermark that says Nation of Change, or the watermark that says ZD Roberts or Zach D. Roberts on it. That's a way that they can Google that. They come up with me. And if they do want to actually pay for it and do want to or get the higher res image of it, or the non-watermarked version, that's the way they get it, and so I think that it's definitely a good thing to do. I'm not say obsessive. I don't do it always. I should.
Yeah.
But I don't do it always, mainly just because it's kind of difficult when you're posting like through your phone and things like that.
Yeah.
There are watermark apps out there and things like that. But I mean, like, if I'm posting to Instagram, I usually don't worry about the watermark.
Yeah, I mean, with Instagram or any of those sites, you just keep it generally low resolution, and it's not that big of an issue. But did I lose Ron and Zach? What is going on? All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next topic. Hopefully we can get them back. Guys, am I out here by myself? Testing. Oh my goodness. This is the joy of live, folks. I don't know what's going on. Okay. All right. Well, it's just me right now, so I better talk and vamp until I can get them back on. Yeah, they are both frozen right now. Let's see here. All right, we're gonna. Ooh, I think Skype locked up. That's the reason why we're having this issue right now. So let me get them back. Hello. I'm here, but you guys both got kicked off. You were talking to Zach. I was not talking to either of you, and I was live. But now I can't see. No, the world will be okay without one of Zach's rants, I think. We'll all be okay. We'll move on. But I'm not seeing Zach. Zach, is your camera on? You can't see me? Oh my gosh. There we go. All right, now we're all good. We're back to normal. Okay. All right. Well, let's go on. Now, again, if you were watching this live, you got to see all of that, but we're going to cut here. All right. We're going to cut here. We're going to move on to our next topic, and if you're listening to this, I'll cut all of this out. Anyways. So that was a very interesting discussion about copyrights. And I think we came to a good conclusion about where we all are at on that. So the bottom line is, just don't do it. If you got the time and energy, if you got the time, energy, and can do it, I'd say, keep a nice little one lower right-hand corner. But if not, I don't know. I put all my stuff up full res on my personal website. I don't care. It's mostly family stuff anyway, so nobody's going to steal that. If they do, more power to them. Oh my God. You know, Ron, I won't even. Indeed. You know, Ron, you purchased something recently, and I thought for sure we'd see it in the podcast. But you spent all that money and purchased something, and we don't get to see the fruits of our labor. I'm talking about your shirt. You bought an Around the Lens shirt. Nice. Oh, well. There you go. All right. Well, for some reason, the video feed keeps on losing Zach, but we can still hear Zach. Right, Zach? Okay. Anyways, this is the fun times. All right. Let's talk about top cameras and lenses. So the 2018 EISA awards were just announced, and EISA stands for Expert Imaging and Sound Association. I'd never heard of them either, but apparently they make judgment calls about camera equipment or photos or something like that. Anyways, they are all about talking about camera gear. So they announced, spoiler alert, the top camera of the year was the Sony a7 III, which actually I agree with. I think it's a great camera, definitely deserving of the award. You know, I mean, I'm not looking to jump ship and switch bodies at any time or go to Sony at this point. There are some things I dislike about their camera bodies and lenses and whatnot, but I think in terms of full frame mirrorless, and we'll talk about Nikon's attempt at that market a little bit later, they're killing it. You know, they know exactly what they're doing, and they're doing it well with regard to full frame mirrorless and just, you know, most everything they've been doing recently. So I commend them for getting this, but you know, let's talk about the other sort of cameras here on the list. For Nikon, I'll throw to Zach. Let's see here. What do we got for Nikon? Nikon. I'm sure there's a Nikon in here somewhere. There's got to be at least one Nikon. I guess, maybe. Oh, here we go. A Nikon Nikkor 180 to 400 millimeter lens. There we go. Congratulations. Nikon made it. Let's see, is there anything else? Oh, there it is, the D850. Okay, yes, the Pro DSLR camera. Yeah. Yes, I'm showing it to our audience who's watching us on the video feed. I just passed over that. I guess I have a blind spot for Nikon equipment. But no, I mean, that's definitely great for Nikon. I mean, that is, I've heard nothing but good things about the D850. And I think, in terms of capabilities, it's right up there. If I were going back to Nikon, it'd be either this or their potential mirrorless. But again, we don't know what's going to be in their mirrorless. Indeed. So what else are the winners here? So DSLR camera, Canon, get some love for the 6D Mark II. The Pro mirrorless camera is the A7R III. We'll see if it holds that title next year. The mirrorless, just general mirrorless camera, is the Fuji X-H1. Never used a Fuji camera in my life. You guys ever use Fuji? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Indeed. And then we have the Best Buy camera. So I don't know if this is a category that is like owned by Best Buy or if it's just like the Best Buy, in terms of price to, I think it's like price to feature set, maybe, perhaps. I don't know. But I've never used, I guess so. I know Canon makes good like vlogging cameras. Canon and Sony are both like the vlogger's camera of choice, but I still prefer the Panasonic. Super Zoom. Casey? Okay. Yeah. Well, that's what most vlogs are. I mean, there's a collection of short clips. I mean, sometimes you run it long, but you're mostly just like, here's a quick shot, here's a quick shot. You don't keep a scene on frame, on scene for like more than a few seconds. Basically, you're editing everything you do down to like a Jerry Bruckheimer movie. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see when you get your new Nikon camera and you hook that up to the video. I can't wait to see the video that'll come out of that. And then, Ron, it'll be your turn to get the ability to plug your video camera into the computer and get high quality video. Well, I just didn't want to see up your nose. That's all, okay? All right, going back to the thing. So the Sony Cybershot, I think that got the best super zoom. Thankfully, finally, we get here to the Panasonic Lumix DC GH5S. GH5, but the best photo video camera on the, I guess the best photo video camera hybrid or something. I don't know. It doesn't really. I guess this is all best. Yeah. So your best bet, but doesn't really have any. Doesn't talk about it. No verbiage. Kind of leaving my GH5 out there. Now the S. Yeah. I do say, looking at the GH5 and then comparing it to like, the Nikon and the not the Nikon, but like, the Sony and everything, and the full frame. Man, that sensor is so small in the Panasonic. I think that'd probably be, if I can find an equivalent, like, if Nikon's mirrorless, and we'll talk about it in a second, but I mean, if it has the features, I don't know. I might switch, but it'll have to be extremely compelling for me to consider switching. But at least my Panasonic got some love. And then there's a whole bunch of lenses, which, nobody really cares about. And then the best smartphone I thought was interesting. They went with the Huawei P20 Pro. It's made in China. Well, made by a Chinese company. Right. Oh, okay. Yeah. Right. Really? So, like, lacks some features or something, or? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Hmm. Uh, yeah. That's right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Exactly. Amazing what you can do with a little bit of talent and skill. Um, you'll get there eventually, Ron. Ron, have you published anything you've shot with the Arsenal yet? Like on Instagram or anything? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Well, it's not designed for you. It's designed for the amateur. You're a professional. You're a pro. Really? Wow, that's very generous of you. Thank you. What I'll do is when you give it to me, I'll try it out, of course, because I want to know what it's all about. I'm going to give it to my wife and let her actually use it because as much as I've tried to, I mean, she has a decent understanding, but like she does not care about like DSLR photography or anything, like a real camera. She'll do photo, video with her cell phone, if I give her the camera and I set it up for her and I charge the batteries and I put the memory card in there, I clear the memory card and I give it to her, she will use it. And she actually has produced a decent shot here or there, but she just doesn't care about like understanding how it works. Like she keeps it on program mode. She doesn't care about aperture, shutter speed. I've tried to make her understand, how those affect light and how, you can manipulate her image, but they're like, eh. So I've been trying that for 8 years, and it's, so we'll see. I'll give it to her and see if she plays with it. But she'd probably be like, no, I never got around to it. No, but I will play with it. Any other camera kit here worth talking about? Oh, by the way, speaking of smartphones, I just bought the Note 8, or Note 9, I should say, the new greatest stuff. It's going to be shipped to me. No, it has Android Oreo. It'll get Android Pie eventually, but it doesn't have it out the box. Okay, thank you. So that'll be on its way. I did get the Note 7 back in the day, and then, of course, that blew up in my face. So, I didn't actually blow up in my face, but, that was a bad thing. And oh, good for you. There you go. So yeah, looking forward to getting the Note 9. So that's got some very nice camera equipment on it. And I've actually, if you go to my YouTube channel, my personal one, I do have a personal YouTube channel, DJM Photo. But if you go there, I did a vlog about my trip to Seattle. And what I want to try and do is I want to try and do my vlogging with the Note 9, because it's got such a great camera on it, and I can shoot 4K 60 frames per second, which is just like my GH5. So, I mean, obviously I'd be lacking the lenses and the ability to zoom that much, although it does have the two cameras, but I'm going to try and make that like a vlogging camera and do that for like, mostly like vacations and little stuff like that. So I actually have one of those. I don't know where it is. I lost it, but I do have one of those. Yeah. Yeah. Have the same issues with mine. Is that the S8 or S7? S8 Plus. Okay. Yeah. Hmm. 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 Well, Zach, if you want to pre-order the Note 9, you can get $400 for your S8 Plus. So, might want to consider that. It's only $1,000, and then you take off $400. Oh, you are? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the rub. At Samsung, they'll give you $450. They'll give you $450 for the S9, and $400 for the S8 Plus. Trust me, I just went through this process. But anyways, let's move on. And then finally, the Speedlight, the AI, the one that moves around automatically, that was the best flash of the year. So there you go. Anyways, interesting list. You can compare and contrast your own camera equipment. Not too surprised by the top winner. I could have expected that. And then, like I said, we'll see what happens next year when the new Nikon mirrorless camera comes out. All right, let's talk about Nikon predictions. So, as you may or may not know, Nikon will be announcing their new mirrorless camera. Oh, we did pick the. Okay, we'll go back to the Cortez block media story. Let's. All right, I do want to mention it before we go, but since I already introduced Nikon. Let's talk about. Let's gush about the new Nikon camera that Zach's going to buy. Definitely, no matter what, even if it costs him an arm and a leg. Yeah. Well, okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to just kind of do our predictions and kind of what we want. Our dream sheet of what we want for this camera. We're going to ignore some of the rumors and speculation about the G6 and G7, whatever they're calling it, a Z6 or Z7, and just kind of talk about what we want. If it were our perfect camera. Or what Nikon might be coming out with. because of course this is the last time we'll be able to do this before they actually make the announcement on the 23rd. So if you're listening to this after the 23rd, you already know what Nikon announced. But if you're listening to beforehand, you can kind of guess with us. So Zach, let's start with you. What do you think this camera will be? Talk to us about the settings and the specs and price. What do you want? What do you think will come out of it? Yeah. Do you think 4K 60 or 4K 120? DxO? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Really? Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh. I love the touchscreen on my GH5, but... Mm, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'd be very surprised if they didn't match all functionality with some sort of button input. GH5 does as well. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. What do you mean by low light eyepiece? What does that mean? Electronic viewfinder. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Right. How dare you? Just throw a battery grip on there and you're good, man. Just throw a battery grip. Yeah. 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 Yikes. Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah, I know, right? Man, you're just an actual spokesman. You didn't get it for free from them. Mm-hmm. So I think you made a couple interesting points there, and I kind of want to dissect them a little bit, unpack some of the stuff you said. So price, yeah, I agree. Price has to be competitive. If they're coming out with something that's like $3,500, they better be prepared to come out with some really revolutionary features to make you pay that price, because they're just going to get trounced by Sony. If they come out with the same price, I can definitely see people who maybe are on the fence, who haven't switched yet to Sony, who are kind of carrying on with their Nikon equipment. They might jump up to this. But again, are they jumping up and using an adapter? Is the adapter going to affect lens quality? Is the like you said, if the adapter's in the box, I think that's definitely a nice selling point. But I doubt it. I highly doubt that they're going to include something like that. It's probably going to be, like you said, an extra $300 feature. Yeah, if the lens quality is flawless, I think people might come aboard. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Yeah, I would say if there's any sort of degradation in quality there, you might see people saying like, well, if you're giving me two distinct products that are similar and in price, just one's made by Nikon, one's made by Sony, I'm probably going to go with the one that has more native lenses that allows me to, connect directly to the camera just for that little boost in performance. But, again, if Nikon comes out with a camera that's, it has to really beat Sony in terms of, like we were talking about, 4K at 120 frames per second, or, again, resolution that just knocks your socks off, or just, color theory or color balance or something like that. And again, it's going to be tough for them to compete on certain aspects because they're using the same sensors that Sony does. They're just optimizing it for them. So I mean, I'm really curious to see what they come out the door with, because, like for instance, I bring it up, Panasonic has been killing it in terms of video just because they have a very high quality, video capable camera. I wouldn't say their stills are anything to, write home about. In fact, I think it's a poor quality photo camera compared to Nikon and Canon, what they put out. Yeah, sure, absolutely. But, again, if they're not coming out with something that's just going to knock your socks off, wow. I mean, the way they've been hyping this up, and I said, on Facebook, it's like, I don't think I'm going to abandon, where I'm at now to jump over to Nikon, but they are killing it with their ad campaign and really making me excited for this camera, which I probably won't ever buy. But, I'm excited for the camera, but if they don't match the hype up with some really awesome revolutionary features that make you say like, oh wow, Nikon has taken it to a whole nother level, then I don't know. I don't see why people would, if you're looking to make that initial jump into a camera brand, I don't know why, what's the difference there, but I think they'll come out with something. I think they're going to have at least one thing that's going to knock your socks off, like nobody else is doing in terms of the other camera brands, and that's going to be its selling point. Or they're just gonna hope you jump on the Nikon name, like Zach, who's a Nikon fanboy, obviously, and it's again, if the adapter is flawless, I mean, again, if you have Nikon already and you're looking to jump to mirrorless and the adapter is flawless, then that might be the only selling point you need, is just you were waiting for Nikon to come out with a mirrorless version of the Sony A7R or whatever, A7 III. So oh yeah, I heard about that. Wow. Yeah. 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 And we don't comment on rumors and speculation. I know. So Zach, you've mentioned price as a sort of key factor for you. Let's say they come out with sort of as we've seen in some other stories, there's going to be like a 20 something megapixel version and a 40 something megapixel version. And the 20 something megapixel version is like $2,000 and the 40 megapixel version is like 35 or 4,000. Is that going to judge? Are you going to say like, do I go for the lower end model that's, in my price range, or do I want to? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 I do want to make a point about weight and lenses and stuff like that. So if weight and lenses and that type of thing is your selling point, a full frame mirrorless, even though it's a mirrorless, is still a full frame camera, which means it uses full frame lenses, and lenses are your bulk weight. Yes, you're going to lose a little bit of weight, by losing the mirror and shrinking down the camera body, but it's still going to be a heavy set of kit. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I mean, every indication from the stuff that I've seen looks to me like it's going to be a camera that has a viewfinder that you can move. That you can pop out and left, right, which is definitely going to affect weather sealing. So that might be a sticking point for some pros, some professionals, whatnot. But I think they'll do a good job in doing their best, but it may not have the same weather sealing as like the D5 or D4. Those things are tanks. It's not probably not going to be designed to be a tank. It's designed to be hopefully a professional camera. But again, it has to match the features. Because again, there's the A7R3, the A7 III, and then the A7S III. I don't know if that's out yet, but each of them has their own like core, like specialty. And it looks like Nikon is trying to go with that. So you may not see cameras of different prices. You'll just see the cameras of different capabilities. And if all cameras are the price the same, would you go with the camera with the higher resolution or the camera with the lower resolution? And probably I've already answered my own question, but the better night capability, because you shoot at night. So yeah, Yeah. 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 So, Ron, except for Arsenal compatibility, what are you looking for in the new Nikon camera? Right. Yeah. Well, I think you're going to want to buy the lenses that are specifically made for the camera eventually. Yeah, you're going to use the adapter for now, but you're going to migrate over to the mirrorless lenses because they're going to be the ones that I think, they're specifically designed for the camera body. If I were not a Nikon, well, I'm not a Nikon user, but if I were to go to this system, I would start and just buy the lenses that are made for it and hope that they come out with, because seems their thing is like, this is a new mount. They're going to come out with all new lenses to fit this mount. You're going to, and they're going to probably slowly migrate away from the mirrored cameras. I mean, that was kind of the prediction by, our own Sharky James. He mentioned that on his podcast, is that sort of, you're going to see Nikon's mirrorless, you're going to see Canon's mirrorless, and it's just going to be kind of where we go in the future. See, people are going to stop buying DSLRs and start migrating more towards mirrorless because they're going to realize you get so much more capability and feedback and information when you're using an electronic viewfinder. I'll say when I first used the GH4 with the electronic viewfinder, it really threw me off. Like, I did not like it at all, but eventually grew on me because I could see like so much more information in detail, and I got used to it, and now it's kind of indispensable. But I think you're just going to see an eventual movement towards mirrorless cameras as the norm. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. I think it's just purely a business decision. I mean, they're coming out with a whole new camera system. What if it's a failure? What if, with all the hype and everything about it, people see it and they're like, Sony's better. And, instead of investing in making a lens, every single lens in their inventory for this new camera, they're making a couple lenses that are their most popular. They're going to rely on the adapter for the short term, and then they'll see the popularity of the camera and release the lenses in time. That's my guess. Sure. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I mean, this is definitely like Nikon has to succeed here if they want to survive as a company, because if they don't, Sony's going to eat their lunch, and all the other folks, the upstarts, are going to eat their lunch. So, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. I think they'll come out with something that's going to knock our socks off. So, either way, they've definitely built up the hype. And if I were a Nikon user right now, if I had the Nikon glass, I would be very excited about what is coming out. And probably, again, like I said, if the price is right, yeah, I jump from the DSLR to the mirrorless ecosystem in a heartbeat. But we'll have to wait for the reviews to come out. And I don't think the camera even is releasing until October. So, you know, but you'll have your various folks come on, the YouTubers, the bloggers, the folks who have early access, people who know people at MPS. Am I right, Zach? Um, you get the maybe around the lens can get some test kits. Zach, just use the around the lens leverage to get yourself. Yeah. No, no. Use the leverage to get a camera. Get a pre-release Nikon camera. No, no. We're going. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Or give Zach a copy of the camera before it comes out. Zach, if you were selected to have the camera before anybody else, what would you do? How happy would you be? Would you be? Yeah. You. I. Yeah. They'll be like, listen, Zach, we love your rants. We want to hear. We want that same sort of energy talking about the new Nikon mirrorless camera. A friend of mine who has actually came on the show, Chamber, Chamber Motion. A friend of mine, he was on the show talking about his YouTube channel. He recently published a video which sort of gave away the secret about how to get cameras that are constantly on pre-order. So what you do is you go to Lens Rentals and you order the camera you want off Lens Rentals, and then when it gets to you, you just say you want to buy it. So you already have it, and you just pay the additional fee, and you get to keep the camera. So, yeah. Anyways, all right. Well, any other predictions, guesses about the camera before it comes out on the 23rd? Anything we want to get off our chest? No? Yeah. So Zach, really the only thing that could turn you off to this camera if it's priced too high, right? If it's like $4,000, $5,000, it's yeah. 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 That's right. Oh yeah. I do. Hey, if I were still just a still shooter, I'd probably still have my Canon 5D Mark II. I mean, that was a solid, beautiful camera. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And you never will. All right. Well, I can't wait to hear your impressions about your experiences with Nikon's new mirrorless camera in 5 years. And so that'll be a great, on the what is it, the 8th anniversary of the show, we'll have you talk. Just got the Nikon mirrorless. It was $500 on a swap meet over at the local flea market. Oh, man. Be like, okay, Zach, there's like 6 generations now. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. And it's a film camera. My N90 would like to have a word with you. Anyways, yeah, indeed. All right. Yikes. All right, gang. Well, we're at the end of our show here. We're gonna have to talk about Cortez. We're gonna talk about her and her treatment of the media, but we'll save that for another episode. Thank you guys so much for taking that time out to talk about all the fun things that we have in the world of visual journalism. Is there anything you guys want to plug before we check on out of here? All right. I'll take that as a no. I do want to plug a video that Ron made about his experience opening the Arsenal packaging. I will publish that YouTube video on our website and social media tonight, tonight, Ron, for you. So go check that out, and you can get Ron's first impressions, not his latest impressions. That's right. He was so much more innocent back then. Now he's jaded and burned by the Arsenal. But anyways, we'll talk more about it when we've all had a chance to use it in a few weeks or whenever that is. But all right then. Well, for Ron Hamilton and Zach Roberts, I have been your host, David J. Murphy. This has been Around the Lens, episode 138, and we are out.